100 Palestinians and they get away. And we don't hear Jewish terrorists.
That's correct.
So good.
That's correct.
I wish you didn't have the bomb here because it is depiction. And Muhammad was a peacemaker, by the way. I will go that issue later. Muhammad, one of the most peacemaker guys. He was evicted. Listen, be honest about you may not like Muhammad, you may not like his message, but be honest regarding depicting this guy. This guy...
He raped a 9-year-old.
No, this is a big lie, stories made up.
He didn't rape a 9-year-old?
Okay, then he split the moon, half the moon fell in Ali's backyard. This is in the same books. Or, this is in the same book. Mm-hmm. Then if you believe this story, you should believe that story. This is fabricated 200 years later. Listen, if a story made up by many people fighting about you and stuff, and contradictory story 200 years, I heard from this, and David said this. Do you think there won't be hearsay?
Are you saying he didn't have sex with Aisha?
Absolutely. Aisha's age was not 9. This is a big, and in the, for example, we have a book, Critical Thinkers for Islamic Reform. There is a scholarly article looking at those books that narrates Muhammad married 9 years old. It is a big blasphemy, insult to Muhammad. Muhammad was a role model person, but Muslims have resources made it 200 years after Muhammad. They made up stories, fabricated. Everyone competed with each other to narrate something about Muhammad.
Then how do you know what's true?
I know what's true because when I look at all the contradictions, therefore I don't trust it. Why I trust it? But I look at the Quran, Quran has different story. Now, what
you didn't
I'm
answer
saying,
my question.
Okay.
Why do you trust what you trust if all of it is contradictory?
Beautiful, beautiful.
How do you justify?
Okay.
I believe this to be true.
Okay.
I don't believe this to be true because I don't like it.
I reject all those books. You're right, absolutely. I reject all those storybooks. In fact, Islamic Reform movement all around the world now gaining great attention, especially educated people, university students. I have been in conferences. Recent conference was in Oxford University. It was less than a year ago. From all around the world, young people, leaders, and academicians came. We talk about these issues. We have, for example, Quran, a Reformist Translation. This is also opening people's mind. We look at the Quran. Quran is fundamentally different than the teachings of Sunnis and Shiites, which is based on liturgy, 200, 300 years later fabricated. It is mishmash, it's full of contradictions. In one way, they idolize Muhammad next to God. It is kind of even in a story of Miraj, he goes up to the 6th heaven, 7th heaven, discusses, argues the number of prayers with God. He's more merciful than God. But he's stupid, cannot understand 50 prayers cannot be done in one day, 50 times of prayer. And then Moses reminds him, says, well, 50 times a day is too much. Go tell God, reduce it, make some discount. He goes up to the 7th heaven. Yeah, this is the longest story in Bukhari. Bukhari is by Sunnis.
But you're avoiding my question.
Yeah.
Okay, my question was, if you have a whole bunch of contradictions in the Bible, and you get a whole bunch of scholars in the, I'm sorry, the Quran. Okay, you're doing the same thing that the Jews do, and you're doing the same thing that the Christians do, which is you're looking at what you like. You're looking at this book, you're picking and choosing what you like and what you don't like.
Okay, I need to clarify. You're right. I need to clarify. That means it was not clear. Now, Muhammad received the Quran. He's claimed. He says Quran. During his time, there was only Quran written. And for centuries, there was no other than the Quran. But later, 200 years later, there are many factions even killing each other. And then even they started fabricating hadith. They call it hadith, misnarration. I heard from my father from uncle, from grandma, and this and that, heard from Prophet Muhammad said this. For example, in Bukhari, you see advertisement for a certain brand name date, ajwa date. It is cure for everything. Or a hadith that put women in the level of animals. In front of the prayer, if a donkey, dog, and woman passes, your prayer is nullified. Or the most of the heaven is hell, is occupied by women. This kind of hadith. Or killing people or torturing people. Muhammad, in one way, is the most merciful person. Some hadiths you see. In the same book, you see Muhammad is arresting some people, suspects who supposedly kill his shepherd.
Yep.
He chops their arms and legs and live in the desert, gouges their eyes with hot nails,
yes,
and then leave them thirsty, dying. And this is also hadith they believe. And Muslims, when they ignore the Quran, when they follow the Quran during the time of Prophet Muhammad, They became number one in civilization in sciences, leading in sciences. This is not just coincidence. These were tribesmen, misogynistic slave owners, superstitious, polytheists, and all kind of negative things about this, fighting with each other. And with the message of Muhammad, these people, tribes, became hungry for knowledge. They translated all the Greek philosophy. They contributed to cosmology, to astronomy, to medicine. For example, Ibn Sina's book, Shifa, for 500 years it was in Western universities as the only textbook, number one textbook. Or Ibn Haysam or Ibn Abul Iz, he was the automation guy, he made automation. Mm-hmm. And or algebra is basically invented by Muslims. Basically, they
invented by Muslims does not imply that Islam caused these inventions.
Islam, because the Quran, listen carefully. I'm not just a straw man Muslim that you can punch easily, okay? I'm not one of those that you can say, because the Quran is a very scientific book. The Quran repeatedly say, do not follow anything blindly. Let me just read you one verse, 36, chapter 17, verse 36. وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ. I know a little bit Arabic, let me show off.
Okay, go for it.
Do not follow anything blindly. وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ. That you don't have knowledge about it, do not follow. إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ كُلُّ إِلَيْكَ كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. Your eyes, your ears, and your mind is responsible whatever you're following. Throughout the Quran, reason is promoted. Bring your evidence. There are so many arguments in the Quran. Bring your evidence, bring your evidence. Mm-hmm. And here is our evidence. The Quran, perhaps, among all the religious books, it is a book that quotes opponents the most. 332 verses quote the disbelievers, the deniers of the Quran. Quotes how they criticize Muhammad or the Quran. Qalu, they said. And there are 332 qul, say, as a kind of response, exactly equal number of times. Therefore, it is a very scientific book. And I am claiming, and I am arguing that the information in the Quran about various sciences, about the creation of the universe, about embryology, about some physical issues, some sciences involving many aspects of sciences, not a single error you find. And for example, the information about Big Bang, this in chapter Rum, or Anbiya 21:30. In that verse says, don't, if you don't mind, let me read this verse for you.
No problem.
Yeah, and then I will go give some mathematical information.
So I want to get this straight here. So you discount every hadith.
Every hadith, absolutely.
Okay.
They are fabricated by ignorant people who are, according to the Quran, enemies of Muhammad. Interesting prophecy in the Quran. I say prophecy. The word hadith, wherever is mentioned, if it is hadith means words. Mm-hmm. If it is ascribed to the Quran, it's positive, beautiful hadith. But other than the Quran, it is very interestingly is rejected. It is false. For example, one verse says, فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَ اللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Which hadith, which word besides God's signs and besides God they will believe? Very interesting. There is prophecy. They picked a negative word to kind of follow as a partner with the Quran.
So these the millions and millions of Muslims
yes,
in this world that look at the hadiths.
Yes, unfortunately.
Some of them more educated than you.
Yeah.
They're wrong.
Absolutely wrong.
But they would say that you're wrong.
I discuss with them in Turkish TV with top religious scholars. They cannot stand our argument. I have written manifesto for Islamic Reform exposing them. They all escaped. After you will go to Islamic Center here in New York, the biggest mosque on 96th Street.
I believe it is, yeah.
Yeah, I will have, and they don't know me. If they know that I will be interviewing them, they will be escaping because they always escape.
You keep using that word. You mean leave.
No, they don't want to confront me in public or discuss record. Therefore, I will be going into that like act of God, a tornado, hurricane, means we'll record that.
Okay.
But, therefore, it is very powerful argument we are making. It is theologically very powerful, very strong, that hadith is rejected by the Quran itself. They don't follow the Quran. Many contradictions. For example, the Quran, there's no stoning to death. Absolutely. And this fabricated later, they got from Jewish people. A lot of import from Jews and Christians and Buddhism entered through hadith. And they even fabricated a story about that. Let me tell you a story, it's funny.
Okay.
According to that story, there was a verse about stoning to death. It's not in the Quran, let me read it. الشيخ والشيخة إذا زنيا فرجموهما البتة نكالا من الله. This is supposedly a verse in the Quran. And after Prophet Muhammad, it was written on leather under Aisha's bed. It was somehow protected. And then a hungry goat goes and eats this verse, which is written on leather, goat eating leather. And then therefore it is abrogated from the Quran, but it is valid, its judgment is valid. This is a story believed by all Sunnis. It is in their more cherished 6 authentic hadith book. Imagine, you say those scholars, more knowledgeable than me?
They would say so.
It's not a matter of mind, it's a matter of reason. You could have a lot of garbage knowledge, stories you swallowed, you know all the stories, it doesn't mean you have knowledge if you don't have critical thinking, correct? Would you think a person who believed this story, that goat ate, let's say a book, let's assume this book is from God. Prophet died, and then after it is written on leather, and then God sends the goat, and goats eat it, and it is out of the book, the prophet is dead, and then they said, though it is eaten by goat, is what? Yes, and but it is valid. It's not in the Quran. This is explanation why it is not in the Quran, but why they should apply. When it comes to religion, people become stupid. I am not a religious person. I cannot fit in any religious organization. I am like a bomb. I ask questions.